spare your cash. I mean, don't be greedy because, as one my grandmother used to say, we're not rich enough to buy cheap.
Welcome to the Favorable Environments podcast, featuring interviews with industry leaders, pioneering researchers, and influential entrepreneurs. This podcast offers listeners a unique perspective into the minds shaping the future of medical technology and healthcare.
This episode features a conversation with Fabrice Paublant. Mr. Paublant is the Chief Executive Officer of Orixha, a medical device company based in France. Now, Orixha's tech, which is called Vent to Cool, is the first time I've seen liquid ventilation used in the intensive care unit. Without spoiling the rest of the episode, I'll leave you with this quote from Orixha's website. With Vent to Cool in 2025, we aim to achieve 2 world premieres. One for the first safe total liquid ventilation procedure, and the second for ultra-rapid cooling of a cardiac arrest patient in 30 minutes. And now, here's Mr. Fabrice Paublant.
I think my background is economics and business. First in France, and then in Boston at MIT. I did my MBA at MIT in the late 1990s, and basically, I guess my greatest strength is that I'm a specialist of nothing. I've had the chance of working with very different people in different positions, different roles throughout the world of life sciences, always on the industry side or the consulting side. And basically I learned that, you have to listen to the experts, because they know where to dig, to strike gold. But you also have to be able to challenge them. And I think the fact that, I now have about 30 years of professional experience, starting, selling pharmaceutical products to primary care physicians in Russia and setting up the marketing operations for a French pharmaceutical company there. And then moving on to Boston to do an MBA, and then joining a Boston Consulting Group and doing consulting to top-notch biotech and pharma companies. Doing cases on R&D portfolio review to mergers and integrations of large companies. And then really, I guess 20 years ago, I started really my entrepreneurial career, moving back to France with my family in 2004 in Lyon, in the center of France, a beautiful city. And I've had several entrepreneurial experiences. And through all these different lives, I would say, I've done business with the Kazakh people. I've met when I was 24 years old. I met the Kazakh prime minister for a one-to-one interview. When I was 22, I met with the head of the mafia in Kiev for a one-to-one interview as well, which was a different kind of topic. And then, as I grew up and in BCG and meeting some very serious senior leaders in the pharma biotech industry, and working with great people at BCG, the partners who were there, most of them still were there, and then entrepreneurs. So I think I've had the chance to be in different cultures, talking with different types of people, very deep experts, people who are more at the broader level of politics or business, and that's useful when you set up a startup in medtech or biotech, especially I think in medtech, because biotech is quite protocolized. I had an experience with setting up a biotech startup a few years ago. Medtech is much more open. It's much more diverse. The regulatory pathways are getting more stringent, but they're still also more less well defined. So the breadth of experience is always valuable, because you need to challenge. You need to try to think, okay, this guy is telling me this. He's an expert in his field, or this lady, but could we do it a little bit different? I mean, for us, we need to go faster. We need to go with less money. and you have to challenge, and I guess one thing I've learned is to listen to those guys, but also to challenge them.
Yeah, certainly. And you mentioned with your vast experience, and then you kind of pivoted to go straight into entrepreneurship. Was there like a moment that happened in your life that you decided to take the risk of kind of starting your own business, or how did that evolve?
Well, I guess I've always been more of a risk taker in my professional life. And that early on, working with Russia and Ukraine and Kazakhstan in the 1990s, and then taking my family to Boston and to start an MBA program. And that's what drives me. This kind of adrenaline of doing things new, opening some new paths that are still pretty much in the jungle state. And so after 3 years at BCG and 5 years in the US, we felt it was time for us to come back to Europe. And I looked at opportunities in big corporations. I looked maybe going back to BCG Europe, and then I had a friend calling me up and offering me to start what became Laboratoire Narval, so an innovative medtech company for sleep apnea. And I thought that was too good to be passed. So we embarked on came to Lyon, where he was based, and we set up Narval in 2004, and we sold it to ResMed in 2010. So it was an intense 6 years crash course in entrepreneurship and in setting up a medtech company. And but fortunately, it ended all well. So that gave me the virus of entrepreneurship.
Certainly. And can you kind of share about your company right now, Orixha, and kind of your mission and what challenges that you're trying to solve at this moment?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting story. It's a long story already. The story of Orixha. It's almost 20 years old since my co-founders had the crazy idea of developing the first liquid ventilator, so that a patient could be ventilated with a breathable liquid. And that was just an idea at that stage in 2004. And now, 20 years later, we are finally entering the clinic, and we're going to have our first patients being treated by our liquid ventilator for post-cardiac arrest syndrome, and using liquid ventilation as a way to cool the body of the patient very rapidly and to protect the critical organs from the reperfusion injury that happens when the heart restarts after cardiac arrest. So it's an amazing story. I'm glad to be part of it. I joined it 7 years ago, so there had been 13 years of preclinical development and technology development in the academic setting. First in University of Sherbrooke in Canada. And then a collaboration with the École Vétérinaire d'Alfort, the veterinary school of Alfort, just outside of Paris, which is the oldest and most prestigious French veterinary school. And those guys had been, before I joined, they had been working together for 7-8 years at the transatlantic partnership financed by the French state. And then, then the next step, the logical next step, to make it a clinical reality, was to set up a startup, and that's what they did in 2018, and that's when I met them. And since January 2019, I'm managing the company. They trusted me to put their babies in my hands, but they're still very also present and active in the company, especially Professor Tissier and Mathieu Nadeau, as well as Philippe Pichot and Matthias Kalauer. So it's been a great ride for the past 7 years together, and now we're entering the clinic, which is opening really a new chapter for this technology, which is kind of science fiction-esque a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, as you share that, I'm just trying to think, like, with your previous industry experience, education, then now leading into Orixha, I'm sure you've learned also new things. And, the next couple questions here is just some perhaps guidance or tips to an audience out there that are kind of in a similar boat as you as far as business formation and operations. When we talk about raising capital, in your experience, what are some financial missteps that could potentially derail a medtech company? And what are some things that they should kind of think about as they're fundraising?
Well, I guess the first thing, which is quite obvious, but some people tend to forget, especially if they've done a good fundraising, is that cash is king. I mean, you need to pilot your development program, pilot your hires with having in mind how much cash you have, how much cash you will need, and the fact that things always take longer, are more complex than what you expect initially, that investors will take more time to review your business case and to do that due diligence. So you really need to bear in mind that cash is very precious. Initially, it because initially you have no cash or very little cash, so it. But then you might do. I mean, that's not what happened to us, but you might do a 20 million round, and then you realize, wow, now I got all this cash, man, that's great. And then you're going to have investors pushing you to invest and to recruit superstars and to have nice facilities and to have lots of consultants that are supposedly going to speed things up for you, and some might and some won't. and then suddenly 18 months later, you're like, wow, hold on, where are my 20 million or my 10 million going? And now you need to go for more cash, and you've got a cash burn, and it's pretty high. And, once you've hired people, you go, it's, especially in Europe, maybe in the US, it's a bit easier, but even though, when you have to fire, you do some back and forth in hiring, it's very bad for the company culture, and then you might lose the best elements, and you destroy the momentum you have. So really, spare your cash. I mean, don't be greedy, because as one my grandmother used to say, we're not rich enough to buy cheap, but and so don't go for cheap things. Don't hire cheap people. Don't hire cheap consultants. But really save your cash for just the things which are really critical for your next milestones, for speeding things up, and everything that's just nice to have. Just steer clear, and you'll be harassed. And I haven't raised so much cash, but we did raise some cash, and every time you're in the newspaper and say, Orixha raised 4 million, and you have emails from consultants from all over the place. Well, it can help you, it can give you things. And don't bother with that. Stay focused, and rely on your team. Rely on your really solid partners. Invest in your team. Invest in your critical partners, and but be cognizant that cash goes very fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hear you mention company culture and identifying the best talent. And when you have that capital, then you have to kind of think about, okay, where's the use of funds, right? Do you invest that into the development, or is it on the regulation? Is it the patenting? So I can only imagine how diverse that field can be. But I guess, have you developed kind of like a leadership philosophy, or how do you manage all of those elements of the business, but also the people? Over time, have you kind of developed a leadership philosophy to kind of create that organizational culture, or at least, sustain it?
Well, I think you have to come back to what's expected from a leader of the organization. It's obviously you need to empower people to make them develop their skills and use their skills in a fashion that's profitable for the business, and when it will be rewarding for them. If they see that their skills is put to good use and makes the project move forward. So that's a critical part. And the second part is to take decisions. And because you're expected at one point, either collectively or individually or with a subgroup to take decisions, some hard decisions. Decisions where you allocate the cash we just mentioned. Decisions on should we fight for a patent or not on this idea. And tons of decisions. Should we invest or should we subcontract? Should we hire or should we just go for a consultant? I mean, you permanently have to take decisions. And I think my first philosophy is it's always better to make a decision, even if it's the wrong one, than not to make it. Because the worst thing is to procrastinate. If you cannot afford to have a culture of procrastination, or fear of taking risks in a startup. I mean, for me, that's it will kill the startup. It will kill your culture, and obviously you will make mistakes, and that's part of the game. But assume your decisions. Some decisions you have to be very upfront also on who's responsible for this decision. Is it a collective decision? Some decisions have to be collective with your strategic committee or with your investors. Some decisions can be collective with all of your employees, because it's important that everybody buys into we have a vision tree at Orixha, and the vision tree is shared by all the employees. It's every word is approved by all the employees, and they have to be on board with it. Otherwise, we rewrite this sentence to make sure that everyone is on board. And we do it on a regular basis. But then some decisions you consult, you ask for advice, for opinions, you challenge, and you say, well, okay, guys, I'm going to make the call here, and we'll revisit it, and it's okay if a month later you tell me that it was the wrong call, and I hear that, I listen to you, and maybe we'll reverse course and we'll cancel this decision, or we'll adjust it, and so on. But so I think this is very important to be upfront about what process is going to be, under which process the decision is going to be taken. Because if you tell people, we're going to take it collegially, and then at the end you take it and no one agrees with you, then they feel cheated, which is okay, which is normal. But you can be also very upfront, say, I'm going to listen to you, but in the end I'm going to take the decision. You might not agree, but that's okay. That's the deal here, and and there's no. We live in the complex world. We live, we're on the brink of science. We're pushing the boundaries of science. So obviously, we don't know what's behind us. It's like going to the jungle. You cut some trees, and then you don't know if it's going to be a pond, a river, or another more jungle forest, or whatever. So we need to go forward, and to be quick about it, and also to be quick to adapt, to readjust if. A month, a week, 6 months later, we realized it was not the right way to go.
No, what you mentioned there kind of reminds me of one of my mentors says a very similar sentiment, where he's effectively said indecision is effectively like a disease where people get, analysis paralysis, and kind of like what you just said, in today's time, we have so much content and information at our fingertips, not to mention, with the AI revolution and, more capability. But at the end of the day, we have to make a decision, and it doesn't have to be, like you said, the right decision, because at the very least you can learn from it and don't make the same mistake twice. But kind of on the lines though, like what role has mentorship kind of played in your career? Is there anyone that comes to mind, and was there a moment where you were seeking mentorship, whether starting your company or early in your career?
Yes, we did receive mentorship, like with Naval, for instance. There was this one fellow, Christophe Vincent, who was very helpful to help us build the team and align our expectations. We're 3 co-founders with very diverse backgrounds, and obviously there's always some tension and so on. And, he helped us to regulate, who should be doing what, and it's okay that, you don't agree, and how do you go through that. So this Christophe was very instrumental in helping us gel as a leadership team in Narval, based on this experience. And then myself, early, just after, during the COVID years, I took a class, training in coaching, in business coaching. So I learned a lot of principles, and I try to apply some of these principles in Orixha, and sometimes I do my spare time a bit of mentoring for young entrepreneurs. But I've been and I think it's very interesting to be mentored and to mentor as well. When you do mentor younger entrepreneurs, for me it's always a very interesting learning experience. As I tell them, probably I learn as much from you as you do from me, but you still pay me. But no, but it's really something, it's I think it's a very useful tool, useful resource. It's no one knows everything. I mean, no one, the whole thing of the macho cowboy who's gonna rule the West, it's over,
Yeah.
Not even sure it ever existed. But we're really in a world, as you said, where there's so much information. We need to cultivate collective intelligence. We need to be aware of what we don't know. We need to be aware of the power of having a very solid leadership group to steer a company, which means that if something happens, tomorrow I can get sick for 3 months, and or I can have an accident. And I know that Orixha has the leadership team to keep moving forward, and that's great. It's also it's peace of mind for me, because I know this the project doesn't rely on one person, and that's really something we need to, as leaders, as entrepreneurs. That's something we need to be cognizant of, and we all have our blind spots, and having a mentor, having a coach, helps us with that, helps us grow. We need to be challenged. So mentorship is definitely something that needs to be done, and needs to be done by people who are really professional of it. I think it's either professional because they have very high expertise and experience, and that's it's more kind of a mentorship part of it, or if it's more coaching, it has to be done by a professional coach who knows how to challenge you or me without putting you at risk of destabilizing, or creating some kind of shock that would be negative for the leader. The leader has to be it's difficult enough. We need to be reassured as well, so we need to be kindly challenged.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, yeah. Because I mean, I know it's at least some people. I can only speak to the U.S., but I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like the confrontation, right? Or when the people do kind of are challenged. There's kind of defense wall kind of goes up, and it's really how you navigate through that. But I totally agree with you. It's kind of like it's not so much about the intent of the message; it's how the message lands, is what my wife tells me. But kind of looking at the horizon now, what is next for you? In the next 5 years or so, what is next for you, Mr. Paublant?
Well, the next 5 years would be for me and for Orixha together, to make it really to make this technology of total liquid ventilation a clinical reality. So making sure that hospitals, intensive care units in Europe, in the US, in the Middle East, in Asia can use this technology and put it to good use to save lives of patients after cardiac arrest. So that's our first device, Ventocool, and we hope that by 2030, 2031, it will be kind of part of the gold standard protocol of care for cardiac arrest, ultra rapid hypothermia induction that we deliver with Ventocool. And then there's more products, more applications with the technology we're working on. One is for respiratory distress syndrome, so typically the COVID patients, but not only, where you have a very strong inflammation of the lungs. We know that those breathable liquids have some very non-pro-inflammatory effect and can allow the alveoli to regain physiological function, being shielded, being protected by the breathable liquid. So, there's this is also a very deadly, as we've seen with COVID, this is also a very deadly situation. Patient intubated with respiratory stress, the odds are pretty dramatic for survival. So we know there's lots of things we still need to do to transform all these efforts of the past 20 years into real clinical value for patients and financial value for shareholders as well, obviously, because they're taking the risks, they're putting their money in Orixha, and that's very exciting. That's this Orixha is my last gig as an entrepreneur.
Oh, really? Okay, this is the last one.
So yeah, this is the last one. I'm getting too old. I'll be too old in 7 years. I still feel young, but then I know the date of birth on my documents. So at one point you need to leave the floor to younger people. And but this is my last gig. So the next 5 years are going to be hopefully a period of acceleration for Orixha in translating this technology into real clinical benefit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I do kind of want to take a moment to kind of go back to the technology in Orixha. When I was doing some research, this was the first time that I saw the term therapeutic hypothermia. Can you kind of share with our audience a little bit about more how the device works and what is this kind of liquid breathing, or the technology and the delivery? How does that kind of what's the impact of that for someone with PCAS?
So the idea is we every 10 seconds we ventilate. So we push about just under 1 liter of our breathable liquid into the lungs of the patient, and the patient is comatose. So we go through the endotracheal tube, which is a standard procedure for a ventilated patient. So we disconnect the gas ventilator and we connect the patient to our liquid ventilator, the ventricle device. And then every 10 seconds, he will receive about 1 liter of this liquid, which is fully biocompatible, which is thermoregulated. So it's going to be cold, going to be at 20 to 20 degrees. And there's an auto-regulation of the temperature of the liquid to make sure we cool the patient very rapidly, but we don't overcool it. And obviously the liquid is charged with oxygen, otherwise we would drown the patient. And that would not be no good. So the liquid is an oxygen carrier and a CO2 carrier. So it brings oxygen, it removes the CO2, and it's kind of extracorporeal circulation, if you will, but of the lungs. And in the device, we have developed this technology, which is patented, where we remove the CO2 and we charge it with fresh O2, and we adjust the temperature. So the lungs having such big surface of exchange with the bloodstream, it's a very potent cooling device or heating device, by the way, depending on if you bring some cool or some hot liquid into the lungs. So obviously the patient is at 36, 35. We bring the liquid at 25 on average, 27. So that's delta of temperature, and the huge surface exchange surface will allow the blood compartment, the bloodstream, to be at 32 degrees within a couple of minutes. And then this blood reaches the brain, the richly perfused organs, so the brain, the kidneys, the heart, the liver, and then it puts those organs at 32 degrees, 32 to 32 degrees within 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that protects those organs because it reduces their metabolism, so they're more resilient. And also the action in the bloodstream is that the cold, lowering the temperature will kind of tame or dampen the cytokine cascade that takes place when the heart restarts. There's a really systemic. This is the definition of PCS, or post-cardiac syndrome. It's this systemic cytokine cascade that restarts with after the no flow or the low flow when the heart, the pump restarts. And that, that dual mechanism, which is well known, for quite a while now, is what we do. And we do it with a speed that is really, that's never been possible before, because before the cooling was done through external methods or through catheters in the one of the big veins, but the exchange surface was very small, so you had cooling speed of 0.5 to 1 Celsius, 1.5 Celsius per hour, and we reached cooling speeds of 5 to 20 Celsius per hour. So really, in a few minutes, instead of in a few hours, you can get to 33 degrees, your brain to 33 degrees, your heart to 33 degrees, your kidneys to 33 degrees, and time is essential, because the faster you do it, the earlier you protect, the earlier you dampen the sticking cascade, and obviously with the apoptotic cycle, with the neuronal death and cellular death, it releases new cytokines which are pro-apoptotic. So you really need to put this under wraps as quickly as possible.
Certainly, yeah, that's really fascinating. Yeah, because it sounds like you're kind of using the lungs as like a artificial, like, kind of heat exchanger. You're saying, so the cooling starts at the lungs, but then there's this cascade effect where blood flow. So is it the blood flow that then effectively cools the brain and other organs of the body then?
Exactly. The blood flow is at 30 degrees, and then it cools the richly perfused organs, such as the brain or the heart, and those organs get to 32 to 33 degrees. In animal models, we can closely monitor that within 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. That's incredibly impressive. One of the final questions I'd like to ask you is, you've shared definitely about your background, kind of your journey going into entrepreneurship in the medtech space, your individual philosophy as it relates to leadership and organizational culture. Then you just share with us a little bit more about kind of the technical details, the Venticool platform and your company and what you guys are trying to do. One of the last questions I have to ask for you is there anything else that you would like to share about you or your company or the industry as a whole? Is there anything else that you would like to share to our audience?
Well, I'd like to say that it's important to I'll come back to what I said first. To listen, to challenge, to talk with people. You mentioned the era of artificial intelligence, and we think that we just pop up a good prompt and we get the answer and so on. Yeah, it's true for some things. When if I want to know, what's the step to file an application to get approval in the UK post MDR. I go on ChatGPT and I get the correct answer. But there's so many more sort of decisions we make, and which involve when we hire people, when we go for fundraising, and nothing replaces bouncing ideas, sharing ideas, challenging ideas, being challenged, tossing ideas, listening to how people react, what they say to it, and not taking it for granted, but slowly building your own mental map of what do we need to do, why we do it, and sharing it with your colleagues, making sure they understand. So this process, this really fully human process, which goes through the ability to communicate, or willingness to communicate is really critical. So that's something not to forget, because, as I said, it's there's some decisions which are too complex to be found on the internet or on ChatGPT or whatever next embodiment will come.
Right.
Or to just say, well, I delegate to an expert and he'll run with it and he'll come back to me with an answer. There's some very critical decision at the core of your business, at the core of your adventure, at the core of your team, that you need to spend time with people and around the meal, around the visio conference, in a seminar where we do some activities, whatever. But take the time and to mature your thoughts and mature your decisions. I said we need to make quick decisions, but at the same time, for really important ones, there's still a maturation phase that needs to take place, and that usually is the other human beings, and diverse human beings who can help you make less mistakes.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Favorable Environments podcast, made possible by the USD Discovery District and South Dakota First Capital. To learn more about USD Discovery District, please visit usddiscovery.com. And you'd like to learn more about South Dakota First Capital, please visit southdakotafirst.com. And if you'd like to check out the complete list of guests we've had in the past, you can learn more at favorableenvironments.com. And lastly, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please consider giving us a 5-star review. That will help us out greatly. Thank you.